We discussed a very good amount of topics under the React Router DOM library. Inside this lecture, I'm going to show you all the slides that I have prepared for you, which you can always refer them for quick revisions. In the same process, we can also revise all the concepts that we have discussed so far inside this section one more time. First, inside this section, we discussed about what is routing in general inside web applications. Routing is nothing but allowing the end user to navigate to different pages based upon the actions that the user is trying to perform. This routing functionality is not supported by the React core library. That's why we need to set up or install React Router DOM library or package inside our project. We just have to execute this command, followed by you can create all the required components that you want to show based upon different routes that the end user is trying to navigate. Your components can be mapped to the routes with the help of routing configurations or with the help of routing mapping. How to do these routing configurations? It's very easy. We have two different syntaxes to perform these routing configurations. First, I'll try to show you the JSON syntax format. Inside this approach, with the help of this create browser router function, you need to pass all your routing configurations or path configurations in the format like you can see on the screen. There will be always a parent path. Under this parent path, we can have any number of children paths. I also gave explanation about what is the root route, how to define that, followed by in this slide, I explained how to define child routes and what is the purpose of index route. Once we define these routing configurations, we need to provide them as an input to the route provider component by invoking this router property. Using this router provider component, we need to wrap our entire application. As you can see here, in the place where we are trying to use this create route function, in the same place, we need to use this router provider. Followed by inside the app component, which is the parent component for all the paths. In this component, in between header and footer, we need to mention outlet component. This outlet component is going to act as a placeholder and it replaces itself with the correct page component depending on the current path. When you try to visit the about path, this outlet is going to show the about component. In the next slide, I have mentioned the other syntax that we can follow to define the routing configurations. In this approach, you need to use create routes from elements function to define all our routing configurations. As you can see here, with the help of this route, I'm trying to define all my paths along with the loader functions, action functions, and the component details. This approach is recommended for enterprise applications or for complex applications because the readability of this approach is always going to be better compared to the JSON syntax approach. Once you have defined the route definitions with the help of this function, you need to provide these definitions as an input to another function create browser router. So once you have this app router, you can feed the same to the router provider component. I hope you're clear on how to define the router configurations. After these router configurations, we also discussed on how to define an error page for our application. Anytime if you get an runtime exception due to some business logic or due to some invalid path access, under all such scenarios, we can show a common error page. This common error page can be configured by using error element property against the parent route. Inside the error page component, to understand the error details, we need to use the use route error hook. Next, we discussed about the link component available inside the React Router library. We need to use this link component instead of anchor elements inside our JSX code. Because when we use this link component, React does not reload the page, making the navigation faster and smoother. And this is the syntax that you need to follow whenever you want to use link inside your JSX code. After JSX, we also discussed about navlink. Navlink is a special type of link in React Router that works very similar to link, but it is going to allow us to add an active class to the currently selected route or currently selected link. How to do that? It's very easy. To the class name attribute, you need to pass an arrow function, and this arrow function should accept isActive boolean as an input parameter. This property is going to be injected by the React Router library. If this boolean is true, you can style your link differently compared to other links. Thumb rule is always use link when you just need navigation, but if you want to style the active link Under such scenarios, you need to use navlink. After these basic concepts, we jumped on to the advanced concepts like how to define loader functions. With the help of loader functions, we should be able to read the data before rendering the component. This loader option has some advantages compared to the use effect hook. When we are using use effect hook, we will end up doing a lot of state management. But that doesn't mean use effect is bad. Use effect you still have to use in the scenarios where you want to load the data based upon some actions that are happening inside the page. Sometimes you may want to read the data based upon some drop-down value change or based upon some checkbox value change. In all these scenarios, we're not going to navigate the user to some other page. When we are not navigating to some other page, we can't use the loader function. Use effect is the only option. These loader functions, they are going to return the data. These return data can be retrieved in the functional component with the help of use loader data hook. After loaders, we discussed about use navigation. Use navigation is a React router hook that is going to give feedback about the navigation status, whether the navigation is in loading state or in the ideal state or in the submitting state. So based upon this status, we should be able to show some feedback to the end user. In the similar lines, we also have use navigate hook. With the help of this use navigate hook, we should be able to navigate the end user programmatically. When you feed -1 and +1 as an input to this navigate, it is going to navigate the user to the previous page or next page. In the next slide, I showed an example on how to pass params while using navigate along with state data. We also have an option of replacing history instead of pushing. We just have to mention replace as true while we are trying to navigate manually with the help of use navigate. After use navigate, we discussed about use location. With the help of use location hook, we should be able to identify what is the current URL's location. Apart from knowing the current path, with the help of use location, we should be able to read the data that we sent with the help of use navigate. Here, if you see, with the help of this location.state, I'm trying to read the product object, which might have sent while navigating with the help of this use navigate. Next, we focused on action functions. With the help of action functions, we should be able to submit the data to the backend application. We built a contact form. Inside this contact form, we entered some data. As soon as we click on the submit button, the contact action function is going to be invoked. From this function only, the REST API invocation is going to happen. But while using these action functions, we need to make sure we are using the form component from the React router DOM library instead of using plain HTML form element. So here, if you see, I'm trying to use the same here. To this form, we need to mention method as well as post. The data that is going to be returned by the action function, for example, here, we're trying to return a value success as true. This kind of return data from the action function can be read with the help of use action data hook. This is going to provide the return value from the previous navigation's action result. Inside the next slide, I provided an example on how to configure an action function to a path. And from your action function, if you want to navigate the end user to some other page, we need to use the redirect function. Usually we use navigate hook to perform the navigation programmatically, but here we need to use this redirect since we can't access hooks inside the action functions. In case if you are looking to submit the form and invoke the action function manually, under such scenarios, we need to leverage the use submit hook. At last, we also discussed on how to build the dynamic routes. We just have to follow a syntax. Inside your routing configuration, after your static path, you need to mention colon followed by a placeholder variable. This placeholder variable is going to represent the dynamic request param that you are trying to pass. Using the link here, I'm trying to pass a dynamic value product ID by using this $calibre syntax. Apart from dynamic request params, we can also pass some state input data with the help of the state property. So whatever we're trying to pass with the help of the state can be read with the help of use location hook. And these dynamic param details also can be read with the help of use params hook. In case if you want to access these information inside your action functions or inside your loader functions, you need to make sure you are destructuring the input parameters to request and params. Inside the params, we are going to have these param details. And inside the request, we are going to have these state input data. I hope you like this quick revision of all the concepts that we have discussed inside this lecture. Since I am sharing these slides with you, please refer to them always whenever you want to quickly refresh the concepts that we discussed throughout this course. I hope you are enjoying the course. If yes, please spare a minute in providing your valuable feedback.